I'm going to hand over now to the legendary Omri from Zoom, who will be leading this discussion.
Thanks a lot, James. Hi all, how you doing? Thanks for the opening. Legendary, I don't know if I'm legendary. I will say this is my last year, I think my third app promotion from home. So that is starting to get like that's a real, the updated, that's how the conferences have been the last year. So I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. And I think that today we've got a great team with us. I think that after a year of COVID here, a lot of us have a lot of insights, and that's why I'm very excited to have this panel of experts with us. I remember the first work from home event I did a year ago, James, was with that promotion, of course. And who would think that a year after we're gonna still doing these events from home? Think of it last March or last April, where our minds were, we thought, hey, this thing's gonna pass pretty fast. So no, and I think that as professionals coming from the mobile world and user acquisition world, I think we all this year got great experience, great new experience, something no other way we could learn, all of us, each in his sector, each in his business. And that's actually why I'm so happy to be here today, to share with everyone, with all the audience that we have here, to share from professionals what happened last year, how did they manage, how did they grow, and how are they looking at everything forward. So if it's okay with you guys, I'll start with a few for you to know who's with us. I'll start with a few basic, just to know who's with us. So each one of you, I'll go by each one. If you could say your name, your formal role, one or two sentences about the company, your company, and one request, if you could give us an app that you found out this year, your most useful app, but not something that everyone knows about, something that will say, wow, that's new, that is nice. So I'll start with Charlotte, if that's okay with you. You'll go first. Tell us who you are, what company, and we'll move forward.
Of course. So yeah, as Omri said, my name's Charlotte. I work for digital, where I lead the digital marketing team. Depop, for those who don't know, definitely go and download it if you don't have it already, is a fashion resale app. Sort of like we're changing the world of fashion one resale at a time, which is really exciting. Good question in terms of what app that I haven't used before. I would definitely say things like Farmhouse was an app that I had never found before, that I've definitely discovered during lockdown, when I think no matter where you are in the world, getting a food delivery during the peak times of lockdown was near impossible. And then shameful to say, I think my Deliveroo and my Just Eat and my Uber Eats usage has slightly gone through the roof over the last year as well.
Like all of us, a lot of us, yeah. Great, thanks, Charlotte. Claire, moving to you.
Yeah, hello, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to exchange about user acquisition, my favorite topic today with you. So I'm from Product Madness, I'm user acquisition manager. I am working on several channels, social media, DSPs, Preload, influencer marketing, and really happy to share and exchange any question you might have. Product Madness get social casino application, but are not gambling. It's not real money gambling, it's gaming. It's amazing application. I discovered it by joining the company, so really enjoyed that. And on the application, I'm using more and more. It's like all the well-being application, because we had a crazy amount of work during this COVID, and now you know, I need those applications just to learn and set times to rest. So that's my favorite application right now, I would say.
Great, thanks for sharing, Claire. Dan, moving to you from Kuva.
Hi everyone. So I'm Dan. I'm the head of performance marketing at Cover. So for those of you who don't know, Cover's an insurtech app. So we're trying to make car insurance radically better for everyone in the UK. So we're changing the way that everyone can insure their cars. So we do everything from it's all about flexible car insurance. So we can allow people to insure a car from anything from an hour to 28 days, and we're just launching our subscription products. So it's very different to how most people buy car insurance in the UK, and we're hoping that it will have great success over the next year or two. In terms of apps for me, similar to Charlotte, I think we've all branched out into the wonderful world of getting everything and anything delivered to our homes. I think over the last year, I've sort of discovered just, Milk and More is probably one of my favorites. I think you'd have asked me a year ago, I never would have told you that having a milkman is important. It seems to be an essential thing in my home at the moment. And I've been locked up like quite a lot of people with a young toddler for the last year. So things like Disney Plus have been absolute godsends to us, I think, in that respect.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Dan. And Ryan, last from Reflectly.
Hi guys. Yeah, so I'm head of growth at Reflectly, and sort of the bunch of apps that we run focus on a bunch of different channels, performance, affiliates, influencers, sort of the whole spectrum. And for an app that I recommend, I got really big into walking, going outside in the last year. So AllTrails became my sort of go-to app that I could make sure I didn't get lost on any runs, trails, hikes, where you're not really surrounded by anybody, just you and nature. So that's been a good app for me.
Great, thanks. So thanks for all. I'll just I'll say my answer to my question. First, I'm Omri, co-founder and CMO at Zoomed. Zoomed, whoever doesn't know, is it's been in the market for a while. It's a merge of two companies. One is Mobile and second is Zoomed. We hold our user acquisition platform, and we released a new product, a SaaS-based product, running on only premium channels for user acquisition. That's us. Regarding apps, quickly I'll say, so yeah, I'll take all your answers. Walt for delivery, Yahoo, because I started investing a lot. So Yahoo Finance, I've been going in there 30 times a day, I think, to see the stocks and check in what's going on. And totally, I'm with you, Ryan. I found out Runtastic by Adidas, really loved it. So yes, I took all your answers. That's what I used. So thanks a lot. If it's okay, I have some specific questions. I mean, for everyone who did not understand, Charlotte's from the gaming industry. So excuse me, Claire's from the gaming industry. Charlotte's from e-commerce and shopping and clothing and clothes. Kuva or Don from Kuva is fintech and insurance, and Reflectly is content and news and consuming content. So I think all of you, most of you, I think at least, the COVID, I believe, did very good for you. Dan, I have my first question is to you actually, because I think, I mean, gaming was booming and e-commerce was booming and people consumed a lot more content, I believe, on Reflectly. But how was the car insurance industry? How did that go with COVID? I'm interested to hear from you. I mean, what did you do to grow?
I guess we're sort of lucky. Insurance in the UK is mandatory at the moment for people that own a car. So we're in a lucky space where you've got a captive audience of 40 million cars, and all of them need insurance. So unfortunately, in a year where a lot of people unfortunately have had to sort of cut costs and things and change their consumer behavior, that car insurance is relatively sort of protected from that. I think for us, because a lot of our sales is all about sort of temporary car insurance. So pre-lockdown, people used to use cover for all about great experiences, like they borrow friends' cars to go to festivals, to go on weekends away with their mates, and all of those sort of things that everyone loves doing in life. But obviously, all of that disappeared overnight. So we obviously had to pivot the way that we sold cover and presented it to users. So I think a lot of the effort was around just understanding how people's usage of cars changed, and actually, because ours is very flexible, and obviously you only have to pay when you need it. It actually worked really well throughout lockdown, because obviously there was a lot of people that had cars that weren't using them anymore, so therefore they were sending people that were sort of labelled vulnerable and obviously didn't want to leave their homes, and they would send their sort of younger children out to the shops and stuff. So actually, as an app, we actually managed to pivot the way that we talked about cover and the way that we presented it to customers, which actually helped us sort of ride the storm, as it were, for the last year quite well.
Got it. Thanks. Interesting, I think. Charlotte, you've been in what I see. You've been in the Depop for around 2 years, and I'm sure that the last year wasn't something you could plan or even expect, of course. As a user acquisition manager and being in Depop, that's, I think, on a personal note, very interesting company, I think. What do you take? What's your outcome of the last year? I mean, how did you manage to supply all the demand that I'm sure you had? I mean, what's your tips for the next pandemic or the next world crisis that would be, if there will be? I hope none will be, but if.
I mean, the last year has been definitely like a whirlwind, I think it's fair to say, for Depop. I think what we were seeing as like pre-COVID trends anyway, for instance, like people starting to think more sustainably about how they shop, both clothes-wise, but also in their general lives. We saw that sort of amplify even further. I think also what we saw, which was, I think is a fantastic byproduct of COVID, is that people are at home, not doing much, and actually there's a real entrepreneurial spirit that I don't think is talked about much, but that Depop really helps facilitate. So we've had, and that's really like, it's amazing to see, especially from a younger audience as well. They are so entrepreneurial. They're thinking of new ways to do things that just haven't been done before. And I think it's fantastic that Depop has been able to work with them to really facilitate their new businesses and their new kind of this entrepreneurial spirit that's really grown during the last year. So it's been fantastic to see. It's been, I think, in terms of like when you talk about like supply and demand, I think we've had really great demand from this like increase of people wanting to shop more sustainably. Whilst we've all been at home, fashion has definitely still been a part of our lives. It's definitely a form of self-expression as well, as lots of our community members feel. And then when we pair that with the fact that we give our users the tools to essentially set up their own businesses, and or even if you're doing at that level, or just having a clear out as well, and not binning the product, but actually just selling it on, like you might have had your time with it, but it's a brand new and like exciting new item for somebody else. So I think COVID has been great in that respect, because we've had a really good increase in demand, but also the supply has also increased as well. So it's fantastic to see.
Got it. And one question, after the last year that you've supplied this demand, in regarding to growth and user acquisition for the next coming year, 2021, what are the channels or the activities that you say, hey, last year that really worked for us, we're going to put more money this year because it's a better channel?
So I
mean, if it's a media channel, it's like, I know, social, TikTok, I'm just putting an example just to try and lead the question.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to the channels, the platforms which we work on, I think it really does come down to finding channels which we can have a conversation with our users on. I think that's pretty much number one for us. We don't want to create ads that are just ads. It's really about amplifying our community, sharing their stories, because their stories are so interesting and really inspirational as well, and actually giving new users that kind of like that bit of inspiration. There's like, oh, I could do this too. This is totally accessible. This is something which is really exciting. In terms of like platforms, I think we were one of the first advertisers on platforms like TikTok, and it's definitely been something, the platform's grown massively over the last year. I think as we've all seen, TikTok has definitely gone viral. But actually what's happened is we've expanded, the audience on TikTok has expanded, which is fantastic for us too. I think it's something which we will definitely be continuing to invest in over the next year as well.
Got it. And the channel source, anything that you're going to cut this year? You said, hey, we found out that did not work as good as we thought. We're going to cut it this year. I
don't think it's actually, honestly, no, is the hard answer. I think we've seen fantastic growth across all of our channels, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, the Google network, et cetera, Pinterest. So I think it's really about taking them to the next level this year.
Great answer. Everything is great, and you just want to get it better. Great.
We want to do more. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We want to do more.
Good. Thanks. Moving to you, Claire. If I take you again, the gaming industry, I mean, also IPO wise, a lot of companies went public, and a lot of companies really grew. So of course it was an unbelievable year for you. But same question to you. I mean, if you take the last year, what are your surprises? What's the best working channel that you said, hey, I did not think this is going to be working so good, so this year I'm going to put more? And versus also, what are the channels that did not work or gave you bad results, and you said, hey, next year we're not going to use this, or this year, excuse me, 2021?
So yeah, indeed, I think last year was a really good year for all games company because we saw that the retention increase. Slayer made an amazing study about it. I think anyone can find it online pretty easily because people, they needed to be entertained and they needed to be in a situation where they were not alone at home because it was a crisis. It is still a crisis in a big part, in a lot of countries. So yeah, definitely we had kind of this responsibility to keep entertaining the world and continue to share some fun. So I really enjoy it. And I think the best channel was the one that we are the closest to the users. And the one that understood that advertising on COVID is something that needs to be done cautiously. On your creative content, a lot of brands went into it, and I think it's really great that some platform like Facebook, for instance, they're restricted and review those content because I think your brand safety as well and what the user sees on the platform is something that needs to be controlled. But I would say the channel that really spiked up is YouTube on influencer marketing because people, they watch more and more YouTube. You have also some really great studies on the internet. Feel free to reach me if you want some. I really like to share content. And I think influencer really made a big part in how to make people feel better by entertaining user. So I think that was the best channel I saw during COVID. Some brands took advantage of it, some didn't, but that's really what I saw worked the best. On what didn't work, I don't think there is something that cannot work. It cannot be appropriate to your goal, but it can't not work because Facebook, Google, everyone got the audience. Once you get the audience, it's only how you use the tools the platform gives you that can make you fail. So I would say there is not bad platform, but there is some platform definitely that had a big increase in CPM and that made it really challenging to keep spending on it. Yeah, so I would say I would continue to spend on influencer marketing, and I will always go on a diverse media mix and go outside of the duopoly, Facebook and Google to reach the user and be always closer to the user in user acquisition.
Got it. Great. So your recommendation is always to go out of Facebook, Google also, and totally agree with that. I think it's always good to try other sources. Thanks. Dan, moving to you. So actually, again, you had a different year, as you said, but after you went through this year, I mean, what are your surprises from the car insurance or in general, fintech, let's call it even, industry in the last year? What are you going to take as good channels? What are you going to get rid of as bad channels or bad techniques or any mechanism that you found out in the last year?
Yeah, I mean, good question. So I think probably like the others. I mean, we try to scale every channel all the time, but also find these sort of smaller channels that we find that we can sort of tap into. I think over the last, we were the first fintech to use TikTok back in May, and I think back in April, May time, and actually at the time there was at the start we had inherent challenges with the new channel, but actually over sort of the last 6 months it's really grown rapidly for us, and it's actually one of our best performing channels right now. And I think you know, you tend to, when you're doing sort of user acquisition, you tend to sort of follow the crowd. At the end of the day is always the easiest win, in the way that and TikTok grew ridiculously over the last year, and I think that became the channel of choice for us. And in the same way, we found that things like sort of Facebook sort of started to lose its sort of usefulness, as it were, as a UA channel, which was quite interesting for us, I think, over the last few months. I think we tend to think more like sort of your gamers in your e-commerce platforms, I think, than your typical fintechs and insurance apps, in the way that we try to go to these platforms that aren't necessarily the safety net for those marketplaces, which is what's helped. So I think that will basically be our focus, I think, over the next year, is looking to try and really expand our channel mix so that we're staying outside of the sort of typical ones, I think, and just trying to grow through that.
Got it. Got it. Thanks. And one question regarding TikTok. When you say TikTok was really successful for you and your performance side, of course, but you do also like, hashtag activities, branding and awareness activities, or only hardcore performance to collect those leads? I know that's your part is the performance and the leads, but in general, when you say TikTok was successful, do you run also on the higher level of the funnel to generate that awareness or generate those eyeballs watching you, and then you go and just chop and get those leads afterwards? How do you do that?
No, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So we don't use TikTok at all as an organic platform. Like we unfortunately, we don't have enough to say to sort of to run that as an organic platform for us. Whereas we've been using it as a very sort of heavy direct response platform as well. So we're the good thing about TikTok is you can get relatively cheap CPMs, so you can obviously target a lot of people very quickly. And actually what we found is that the DR approach actually works far better than if you try and be a little bit more native in the way that you create the ads. Like we started off sort of having a bit of a split approach, which is where we had the challenges at the start, where we tried the creative angle and trying to make things feel more seamless within the TikTok environment. Obviously, it's an app that people go to for entertainment fundamentally. So we wanted to try and embrace that entertainment element of it. And then in the same instance, we tried the sort of more direct response messaging, and actually direct response far, out responds the organic stuff, mainly because I think like I say, you've got it as a brand, you've got to be very clever at bringing that sort of stuff to life. And actually you've got to be very clever at embracing the trends, and TikTok, the trends, come and go every day. So it's very difficult to sort of constantly evolve like that, I think, which is where we sort of had the challenges. It might be something that, the sort of more e-commerce brands like, Depop, for example, probably have the ability to do, but we, unfortunately, when you work in a fintech world, you don't. So it's part of the challenge.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I thought it's a bit different with you guys. That's why I wanted to know. Ryan, moving to you. I know also you made, thanks, Dan. Ryan, moving to you. I know you did a change also, moving from fintech, Revolve to Reflectly. How was the last year for you? It's a subscription-based business content. How was the last year for you? I mean, again, what do you take? Also, moving industries. What do you take from the last year, and what are you looking forward, and what's going to get better? What's going to get more from you as a user acquisition and performance, and what's going to get less? What did you find out?
Yeah, so I moved sort of pretty much as COVID was hitting to health, mental wellness industry. Just to give quick context, Reflectly is an intelligent journaling app. Helps you vent your thoughts, your feelings, and from there you're able to kind of overcome anxiety, improve your health, emotional well-being, etc. So going from, I suppose, the cold world of finance, tech, it was a huge kind of shift. And one of the reasons why I loved it was it's not the health space, the mental health sort of space isn't regulated. I can kind of be creative. I can do a bunch of different copy, videos. I don't have to go through like a bunch of different layers of regulation or politics or whatever to get something out, which when you're in the fintech space, you need to be very careful what you say. Now, when it comes to, I suppose, the difference in the growth between the two, so because there's less restrictions, you can kind of be more creative. Because you can become more creative, you can kind of take more advantage of these platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, much more. And actually, cost to acquire a customer in fintech is actually quite high in general. Obviously, the value of the user is generally quite high, but that means it's much more difficult to run performance for fintech focused company, especially like it was with Revolut over time. Now, in a very simple subscription business where the app is just there to purely help you and overcome your health, and it's a few clicks of a button and you're in, and you subscribe to a year-long subscription for $57 or whatever it is, it is very good. But I think with some of the channels like TikTok and Instagram, so that was the big growth driver for Reflectly in the last couple of years. We managed to get on TikTok early. You can actually kind of spend a lot of money on drive a lot of installs, which also puts you high up on certain keywords within the App Store. So we rank quite regularly for sort of #1 for journaling, and a bunch of other things. But I feel like just because of the way COVID has evolved, our app is just organically just growing exponentially, because people are using our app to kind of get through this tough period. And that's been great for me as a growth manager, because it grows brilliantly, and I don't really have to turn on or turn off a whole lot of stuff, because it's ticking over. So my focus has gone more from trying to throw loads of money at sort of social media channels to drive UA, for example, to actually trying to take the users that we already have that are coming in organically with high intent, and trying to build kind of side businesses off of that to drive those users to kind of keep them more engaged within the whole ecosystem that we're building. Because I feel it's a long-term game. Just running sort of UA on these social channels, it can work, but ROI isn't there all year for us. We're all about sort of new year, new me, that beginning of that year feeling. That's our Black Friday sort of months. Then throughout the year, it's just very stable. And as for you probably have your own sort of seasonal effects in your companies as well. So as head of growth, my look goes to how do I maximize the value of my users that I am able to bring in. So I've built like course businesses, newsletter, like a newsletter company, sort of like Morning Brew, off the back of the apps that we're building to increase the value of the customers that we are bringing in, because ROI on social isn't brilliant all year round. It is good in parts of the year, but in general, you're just kind of losing money.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Depends. Social. It's all long strategy, long term. But totally agree with what you're saying. Thanks, Ryan, for the answer. Okay, I'll take you to the next set of let's call it topic. In the last years, even, but let's in the last few months, the market's been fizzling and moving, and everyone's talking privacy issues, iOS 14, tracking, attribution, third-party cookie, remarketing by Google. It sounds like we're all starting a great era, an interesting era. I claim that, as long as everyone is suffering from the same issues, so it's okay. And as long as there's only one company, one type of company, so we're all in the same pond, let's call it, with the privacy issues. My question to you, and I'll go to each one, and I'll try this specifically. I'll start with Charlotte. Charlotte, everything's going on with iOS 14, and then the IDFA blocking. How do you think that's going to affect you? I mean, you're really in the content and the storytelling. You want to know who saw what, then you want to give him another part of the video. I mean, how's that going to affect you, do you think, if at all? And is it affecting already?
I think it's fair to say that, like, it's probably going to be one of the biggest disruptive things that's happened in a very, very, very long time in mobile acquisition. I think the biggest change for us is really we're having just to pivot and to quite significantly change, to be frank, lots of our internal measurement. So sure, like cost per registration or cost per install is important, but actually the quality of the user is actually really important as well. It's not just about scale, it's making sure that scale is actually of a high quality as well, so you can build long-term growth for any company, really, but especially for Depop. I think when we often looked at essentially like lifetime value and things like that, and the crux is that we won't be able to do that in the same way as we've been doing it for the last multiple years. That's going. So we are having to sort of build in our own like predictive models essentially to really assess the performance of performance marketing. Performance like that is it's changing. It's changing a lot, and also I think it will make us view, especially like the SANS networks, much more critically in terms of how they are self-attributing. I guess, yeah, how they're self-attributing performance. So for us, it's a massive change, like no way of changing that. I think it's more about us pivoting our own internal metrics to really understand exactly the quality of the user and making sure we can still bring a quality of the user in. I think when it comes to things like creative performance, which is really important to understand what our users are engaging with, we're going to have to fall back on things like click-through rates and like completed views and percentage views and things like that to get an indication of performance of creative. It's definitely not a perfect fix, to say the least. Like it's pretty much the only option, unless anybody has any insights which says differently. I'd be very interested to hear. It's pretty much the only option that I can think of at the moment that really lets us ensure that we're still delivering like good content to our existing and prospective users as well.
Great, thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Charlotte. Claire, you're in an industry that I think is going to be one of the most affected by the changes in iOS 14 and privacy with everything that's going on. The gaming industry, retention, lifetime value. These are things that, you know, measurement is it's basically maybe a lot of marketing actions, but in the gaming industry, it's a lot more. And Claire, when I go into you, I mean, how are you going to tackle this? I mean, look, are you already feeling it? I mean, the changes. I mean, what insights do you have to give us about that for the next coming year?
So first, I would say don't be afraid. I mean, I think I made several talks about it. It's a good change. You couldn't still have a list of IDFA. It was not possible. I mean, you know, it's not on the privacy level, it's not possible, and it's better for your user. Your user are going to feel more confident that you ask actually things rather that you get tracked into all the application is going to do. So I would say focus on how to have a holistic picture of your data. It's going to be aggregated, it's going to be challenging for the attribution, but you're still going to have your data in your games and in your application. So just focus on it and don't panic, because I really think that even without user level data, you're going to be fine. I'm more worried about the timer that makes things really hard, to be honest. So on this, it's true that I'm going to keep following what MMPs they share and what Apple says. But actually, Omri, it comes back to your first question, where are we going to spend the most from now to next year? So the move Apple made is definitely to make you spend more on Apple Search Ads. So if you want to secure this, you might maybe want to spend more on Apple Search Ads, because the attribution on Apple Search Ads is totally fine. So that's good news for Apple, at least.
Totally agree about that. Totally agree.
So yeah, so I think this one, I would focus on Apple Search Ads, and definitely if you are not spending on it, defend your brand, see what's going on around this, and have an holistic picture as well. Build strong brands that where your user will feel safe. If your user already know you, they are more likely to accept the ATT framework and opt in. So it's really important to build this confidence and not to be just someone in the market, but to be someone known in the market. So you really need to work on it, which is great, I think, because it kind of comes back at the first mission of the marketing, which is to get people know your product. So I'm really excited about it, to be honest. So I think, Omri, it's going to be challenging, but I think it's going to be amazing. I'm not the one that are going to say IDFA apocalypse and so on. You can say I'm totally delusional, but I think it's something great for the user, and so it's great for the games.
Great answer, I must say. I really liked your answer. I think the changes, as long as it's for everyone, I think it's great. It's blessed for also us as users. And so I think it will just make us all be better marketers, spend our dollar in a better way, and our users will like us better, I think. That's my thought. Great, thanks. Dan, you have on top of all your iOS and privacy and third-party cookie, you got, bigger regulations issues. I mean, how is that? I mean, when you take fintech and insurance and you add that on the iOS 14 and the privacy with all the, I mean, how are you going to go this year? I mean, doing all this on your side?
So, I mean, you know, like Claire was just saying, we sort of fully embrace the whole privacy changes. I think it's a good thing. It's a thing that, you know, we should empower users whenever we can. And I think Covers certainly always had that approach that transparency should be a core value that we have, and therefore we should always be open and honest and with consumers in terms of what we're doing with their data. I think, I'm sure quite a lot of the panel, if you sit back and think about the data that you know sits within things like the MMPs that we use, you know, it is a little bit uncomfortable at times when you think the amount of data that we get our hands on, which, you know, most people probably don't realize. So yeah, I think it's definitely a change that we're comfortable with. And I think the thing that, you know, like with all regulations and having all these sort of you know, T's and C's and things that you have to show users, is that we're just really keen that the way that we sort of embrace the whole tracking thing is it doesn't become another thing like the cookie policy, which just became an absolute sort of stain on the whole user experience. I mean, we all have teams that spend, you know, hours and hours a day finessing the user experience, and then you've got another net new thing that you're going to put in the way of people. And I think whilst things like this have a, you know, obviously have a UA impact in terms of understanding, having that data to sort of do retargeting and understand measurement better, but actually I think the fundamental has to be like, is putting these barriers in place going to be the thing that actually going to be detrimental within the app anyway, because people just start going fed up with all these pop-ups that I have to opt in and out of. And you know, I think we have about 35% of our users already have the LAT tracking on, so actually it's kind of something that I'm kind of used to. It's not like it's going to be a you know, complete net new challenge. It's just maybe a bit of an increase on that. And I think, you know, we capture things like location permissions and things like that in the app, which you know, in relative sense are probably a little bit more intrusive than just understanding where a user comes from. I think that will be the thing that we'll be probably working on in the next few months, is just trying to educate users as to what it actually means. Like, all we're trying to do is understand what channels work well and what channels don't. It's not like we're trying to use it to, you know, scrape information off any of your platforms. It's that's all it is at the end of the day. It's not as intrusive as I think potentially some people might think it is.
I think for advertising, it's actually like you could see it's a real opportunity, because previously for app acquisition, if you wanted to track everything, then you're probably going after users who hadn't disabled their LAT. Whereas now your audience has basically just expanded even more. There's a bigger pool of audience that you can speak to across all the different networks. I think, yeah, it's a good thing in the long term, I think.
So I agree, totally agree, both of you. Ryan, moving to you before we end. We're going to end this soon in a few minutes. Ryan, moving to you. As you said, and that's what I thought also, your business in the last year really grew organically. Anxiety and, you know, it's things that people have felt for the first time maybe the last year, or maybe even got a lot more this year. How do you, I mean, when you're looking on, you're strong on organic again, and the pandemic really, I believe, did good for you guys. But if you take the iOS 14 issues and privacy issues and targeting issues based on the last year, what are you going to update it? What are you going to change? Because again, you're very strong on organic. How's that going to affect you? I mean, we don't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Trackability is always kind of the priority, and for me, I'm always deep into the numbers. So I suppose I built a model myself using the source data from App Connect. That can give you kind of a pretty good foundation to figure out where your source data comes from and how good it is, because App Connect goes right down into the app installs, the sales, the app purchases, and it's not 100% accurate, but I mean, you turn up spend one day, turns down spend another day, you can kind of see how effective it actually is. So that was one way that I built that seemed to be effective. And it actually gave me an even greater understanding of how these channels truly are performing, and whether true ROAS is sale for sale by channel. And then also to be honest, a lot of the campaigns I run, we used to do a lot of app installs back in sort of 18, 19, but we actually kind of realized that app installs were kind of quite expensive when you could just run web conversion campaigns and get an optimized for, I suppose, button click to get to your app page. And that was cheaper because you could get like a web conversion for like 30, 40 cents. An app install might be $1, $1.50. And you can just you can scale that up. And obviously an app install is probably a higher quality user in general, but kind of scale wise, numbers wise, it also kind of throws a bit of branding in there as well, because you're just getting a lot of people to your webpage to learn about your product. that for me been the two key things. So I don't think iOS 14 update hasn't massively affected us because web conversion campaigns aren't as effective as app install campaigns are. So most of my campaigns are pretty much still running. I've just, to be honest, turned down spend because attribution for Facebook and Instagram and TikTok to understand valuable users isn't as high. So they just kind of grab what they can that's available to them. So that's been my experience.
Great, thanks. So we got a few last minutes. I'll ask a quick question to each one, and let's make it short answers. I'll combine two things. First, have your KPIs looking forward 2021. So Ryan, I'll start with you because you were the last one. 2021 KPIs, have they changed? Will they change?
To be honest, our KPI is to grow sort of at least 30-40%, but we're growing currently like 100-150% because of market factors.
Yeah.
So I suppose more our goal is probably increase our defensive strategy as a whole, to be honest. I think offensive strategy being like spending a load of money on Facebook and Instagram and all that, that's great, but I think we're in this game for the next decade or two, so we want to build things that will come with us rather than just throw the money away.
Right.
That's our strategy.
Got it. Dan, KPIs changed, will change. What do you have to say about that?
Similar to Ryan in the way that I think we're very good at acquiring customers, and I think our focus over the next year will be more on building lifetime value and just trying to sort of increase usage within the app really, and just try to get more people to return as opposed to just fueling that funnel and then hoping some stick around.
Great. Sorry I'm moving so fast, guys. We have 2 more minutes. Claire, KPIs changed, will change. What do you say about that?
Yeah, it will change because a new way of tracking, especially with the IDFV. I'm looking forward to see the solution around this and the new KPI we're going to track.
Got it. And Charlotte, on your side?
I think so. In terms of change, I think we're talking about just like bigger scale. That's the main KPI that's really moving. But I think there's also going to be a lot more focus on that lower funnel, like retention, remarketing activity as well.
Got it. Great. Anything you want to add? Something, guys, important in regards to UA growth, looking forward? Anything from your side? Questions from the audience? I'm talking to the audience. Yep, James.
Hi, Omri. Yeah. What I suggest is we do have a few questions from the audience, and being as we're sort of close to time, what I suggest is if the panel could and yourself could head into Swapcard either now or if they can for 5 minutes and just take a reply to some of these questions. And if you sort of click on the question and then it should pop up a little box and then you can sort of reply in line. Maybe that's a good way of sort of carrying it on. But yeah, maybe I'll just leave you to wrap up. That was, fantastic discussion.
So thanks a lot. Yeah, we'll go into Swapcard, guys. We'll answer the questions there following the session because we have to end. We have 1 more minute. So first, on a personal note, it was my pleasure. I'm going to say, and James, don't get me wrong, I hope this is going to be my last convention from home. I'm dying to be in London and doing this in London. So that's first. Second, it's interesting how again, this is the 3rd one the last year. So it's interesting to see how in each event, answers are getting updated and we have more experience after this last year. And I think it's great having all these e-commerce and games and fintech and content in this session. And it was very, very great understanding the answers and how each category business segment has been working through COVID. I'll say that in general, I think, and we all feel it, mobile did very good to most of us as mobile, as a channel, screen time really grew. And I think that if I put aside what happened the last year, I think that as mobile, we learned a lot and have a lot to learn more and to, of course, execute in the next year. So I hope all of you, we will see you in the next session, whenever it will be in the next app promotion and today here. Thanks everyone for the answers and for your time, and we'll answer all the questions in the Swapcard over there. We'll go dive into it and we'll answer all questions in there.
Thank you, Omri. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks all for all our audience. Bye-bye.